Going to have an English speaker. The first speaker is Tahsin Görgün. He is going to present his speech, a new idea for a university. Let's see what his new idea is. We extend the microphone to him. Thank you. I would like to greet you all with respect, and my thesis is I have an argument. I would like to express it. Universities currently, as they are in the Islamic world, are not enough to meet the needs or solve the problems of Muslims. Instead, they see the Muslims as the problem themselves. They have such a perspective. So if we continue with our current universities, if we don't change their mission, if we don't have the mission of solving the problems of Muslims, we are in fact are going to go into a situation where we cannot solve any situation. But if we go in that direction, any problem we can solve it. This is a very determining factor. In fact, this is relates to the qualities of a university, or what the word university entails. When we say university, any it exists to meet the needs or solve the problems of any community, and it's the process and the tool for that. So if we were to paraphrase it or rephrase it, it gives the consciousness to a society's and it's the highest consciousness of a society. So an actual and authentic university is that way. So it brings that information, that knowledge of its own existence, and creates an awareness, a consciousness about it. This university creates such a value. It creates a value, it manages this value, it focuses on it, develops it, etc. So this is my argument, my main idea, if we were to explain it in simple words. So it has some subheadings, some chapters, some parts to it. Of course, before moving on to them, I would like to tell you that without the university, we cannot exist. Universities are a must, so we cannot just remove universities. That I should express that. But in the same way, the reason for the existence of universities, as my second thesis, is to preserve the status quo and also to improve it within the boundaries of reason. When we say the status quo, the present, we have two things. One is nature and the existence, as humans haven't touched it. So the nature that hasn't been touched by humans, that's what we are talking about. Of course, humans touch nature. Of course, we need a specific way or some principles to deal with it. In that way, nature, when we intervene in a way that is unruly, nature becomes a part of humanity, and it turns into the second part of existence, human actions and regulating them. So it becomes a part of existence. We call it culture, civilization, and other titles. But originally, nature and culture and civilization. So to preserve these, we need universities. And to do that, what do we need to do? We need to preserve the present status quo and to do that, we need to solve our problems, we need to determine our questions and problems, and we need to develop ways, methods to cope with those problems. And while developing those methods, we need to find these results, and we need to record them, and we need to practice these results. So there are different steps, different stages after them. When we have sciences that have a special quality that universities have to teach people. So with these canonical sciences, when we have these canonical sciences in our modern lives, we have two different worlds and their own canonical sciences. So the universities face two different phases. So it's two-phased. Of course, you can take it as is. It has many meanings. So one phase of it is the Western civilization, and the other phase looks at the Islamic world's accumulation of knowledge and information. And in that frame, when something happens, we of course have Western civilization accumulation. We use canonical sciences or books to use them. So they are transmitted. So, and they are theology too. So to learn canonical sciences, you need to learn its content, and you need to imitate it in Harvard, in Preston, in Istanbul University, Paris, wherever you go. You cannot just create a university out of zero, from scratch. All of them have a transmitted information, but they also have reason as science, positive sciences, and those show their effects in unsolved problems. But the background of it is a spiritual one. So we have a problem in Islamic world's universities. They have the Islamic world's theology, but they also have Western Western theology. So universities learn about this, and they try to civilize the society. Mission civilizatories, that's what we call it. And with that, with Islamic accumulation, Islamic information, we have theology faculties and history faculties and some faculties of literature. But when we have a problem, what represents our today and our future is the West and the things from our past, the archaic knowledge that is far from us, and we need to keep that. And then of course we have theology, ilahiyat faculties, and they are under the science, the religion sciences field. So of course they don't only focus on Islam, they are more comprehensive. So the main problem here is bringing the two worlds together to make that connection with the canonical sciences. And that's my fourth thesis, which is to bridge these ones by having the investigation of self. Imam Hanif says this quote that I gave. So we need to find out what is in favor or not in favor of our own desires, and we need to. There's a point here that I want to explain. Islam, the university has two faces, one facing Islamic world and one faces the Western world. Currently, universities don't consider Islamic world's information, and Islam and West already sees us, sees Islamic worlds as something of past, and they, when we look at the Islamic information and science, knowledge accumulation, there is a Salafi pressure, and that perspective doesn't consider current Muslims as Muslim enough, so they don't consider Muslims as the source of information. They don't see them credible or trustworthy or enough for that purpose. So what we said, that we need to preserve the current state, and universities, instead of solving the problems, they problematize. They see Muslims themselves as problems. When we look at the Western accumulation, it sees the Islam, its Sunnah, its books, it sees Islam as problem, whereas when you look at it from the Muslim perspective, we see that current Muslims are not Muslim enough, so both sides don't see Muslims adequate enough to be the source of information, source of knowledge. So if we are going to create an authentic university, we need to take the current state as the source of information and the topic of information. We need to find reasonable ways of that, and we have a perspective in that, which is my fifth argument, to have a realistic point of view, a realistic approach to so in Islam, when we talk Islam, it means the book, the Holy Quran, and Sunnah. Islam is about our interpretations of the text. That's, of course, that discourse, when you take it even further, there is a consensus. We see that there isn't a consensus among Muslims. There isn't a common approach to Islam. Everyone has their own approach. But when we look at ilms, the Islamic sciences, when you take them as the basis, with such an approach, you will have a lot of different opportunities, ijma and mutawatir, and it will have a common points and other dimensions that we can discuss. So we need to have a connection with the reality, as Imam Abu Hanifa says, lahu alayh. With such an approach, we need to think of three different dimensions. One is personal. We need to see what is for us, what is against us. So what is for one person, for one Muslim, what is in favor of us and what is against us. And in the second dimension is, as a society, we need to find what facilitates our well-being, our welfare, and while doing that, we need to make sure that self-preservation as a species, as humanity, that should be another goal of us. So if we are going to create a university, we need to focus on the people as individuals, as well as ummah, humanity together, instead of conflicting with each other, completing it. They should be completing each other, and we should keep that in mind. And my final argument here is, if the Islamic world wants to continue its existence, it needs to preserve its current state existence, and it needs to figure out its shortcomings as well as its positive sides, and it needs to benefit from them, and it needs to investigate this. This is something, this is a responsibility that we cannot run away from. And we need to do that. If we don't do it, whoever, you can say, you can disagree with me, but when we look at other nations, we see that they cannot continue their existence, and we also see that there isn't any hope in other civilization in terms of continuing humanity as is. So we carry the burden of the future of humanity as Muslims. So if the Muslims continue their existence, if they can continue their existence in terms of reason, it can carry the hope of humanity to continue. With such a development, we can carry humanity forward. While I meant, so this is the general summary of my arguments. So these were this was a very quick summary of my arguments. Of course, we need to analyze each one of them, but I have another remark that I want to share about our understanding of university. So there isn't a question of do we need universities or not. That's an unreasonable question. We need universities. That's not open to discussion. But as an institution of the government, or as a part of institutional government, it should represent an order. Universities need to exist, so the financing, the funding can be done through foundations, associations, but the order should continue, and with such a connection, it should position itself in the structure of our country. Otherwise, if we cannot it cannot continue its existence. Another thing is the formal and informal education. Of course, it's inevitable to I'm expressing these to make a point of universities and education. I'm trying to say we should just let Muslims, if we say that Muslims should just figure out whatever they want, however they want to educate themselves, it's going to be disorder, and it's going to eliminate the option of coming together to create a power, and it's going to create conflicts which are going to be politicized, and it's going to make us turn against each other, and it's going to corrupt the order. So we need a formal algorithm to bring all of them together. We need the order. We need to have an order, and university needs to be positioned within that order as an institution. So the first statement is formal education as well as universities should continue their existence. Of course, otherwise you will have let media and the cyber dimensions of the world to teach your children. And another thing that I want to end, and my ending remark is, when we differentiate nature and culture, of course we have spiritual and natural sciences. We also have another hikmah, another knowledge that is in terms of course, Farabi has his own order of knowledge, order of sciences that is still valid today, the theoretical as well as practical. Of course, Farabi's classification continues its existence, but in the Islamic world, we don't take it as seriously, or we don't value it as well as people in Oxford or Harvard do. So if we were to reorganize our universities in that way, we would create a bridge to Oxford through Farabi. This is an interesting situation, but important problem here is when we say universities, when we say nature, we have a problem, which is the moment human hand touches the nature, you need laboratory conditions to research them, and when you create those laboratory conditions, you create a cyber world that is not natural, and there will be new causalities within that, in that virtual world. And you, with our science, we are not actually, with our natural sciences, we are not studying nature as is, because as Farabi, as other scholars said, those people actually created an understanding of studying nature as is, created by Allah, but chemistry or physics or other biology that as we study it today is just taking bits and pieces from nature and then creating an order in a laboratory, and we have new causality orders, and we continue our understanding through them. So what does that mean? It means inherently nature becomes a part of culture. And when we consider this, if we are going to focus on physics, if we are going to study physics, we are going to study biology, we also need to do that. Why? Because I'm just going to mention it before we end, as our prophets mentions, if you want to make sure how dangerous or how evil a country is, or a nation is, you need to learn their languages. So if we are going to learn about the evil potential of gene technology, the virtual world, AI, all of these things, you need to master them to know know the limits of their capabilities. Otherwise, you cannot know it. When you consider that, that means we need to realize that as Islamic world, we need universities, and it carries the humanity, and it needs to create a bridge it needs to solve its problems, and it needs to preserve the status quo to the future. That's such a step. Thank you for listening.
Biz Tahsin Görgün'e çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
We thank Mr. Tahsin Görgün.
Dr. Yaqub Chaudhary. You want to last? Tamam. Arkadaşımız üçüncü olmaktı. Sonra konuşma yapmak istiyor.
Our speaker would like to speak last. So if that is the case, we will entertain from Marmara University, Mr. Ömer Türker. He's going to talk about reclassification of sciences and restructuring of sciences. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. First of all, I actually wanted to be the last, but Yaqub took it away from me. So they call it the last artist to take the stage in Turkish. The diva. I wanted to be diva, but Yaqub took it away from me. So I guess I'll continue from where Tahsin has left off. So I'm going to talk about classification of sciences in Islam and the issues in modern era, and I will also give you some advice on how we can overcome that. So first of all, classification of sciences in Islam and Islamic history, and I will talk about the breakdown of it and come to the end. So sciences in Islam, with the establishment of the Islamic order, first
these sciences came up. Shari sciences, basically religious law sciences. Basically, it was there to establish and build the continuation of the Islamic order. That's what the religious religious law studies tried to do. So Islamic sciences and other sciences got classified. It was organized depending on the science being depending on human will or not. And Tasawwuf was also built. Islamic theology was organized. And to make all that possible, riwayat, as we call it, was organized, basically narration. And during these religious law studies, Muslims have achieved something. Just like in any other civilization, Islam has had some successes in that. Of course, riwayat, narration, was always there, but it was basically disciplinized and turned into a discipline by Muslims. Of course, people had the tradition of narration, but also this narration was basically turned into a discipline in Islamic rule. So there was this new idea of history. So idea of his history changed in that sense. And also hadith, the concept of hadith was also there. And we know some of the previous earlier developments, like in ancient Greek, but it was basically a style that is similar to how other science was built, and also narration. Islam added narration to that. So Muslims basically in some way turned everything into a discipline that they could do. So another success of the Islam in terms of turning into a discipline was seen in istidlal. This was very systematic in Greece. Logic, reason. And basically, after Aristoteles' contributions, for about 600 to 900 years, this was used. But in the Islamic period, with the development of kelam and fiqh, again, Muslims re-characterized and built it around kelam and fiqh. So fiqh, sciences, kelam, hadith was used in the process, and Muslims also built relationships between these concepts. And then in the 2nd century, the methods of these ideas were written down. So for example, Wasil bin Ata died in 131, in the year 131. He had a book, for example, focusing on the methods of these approaches. Jihak bin Dirham, for example, died in 145. Mufassir Muqatil bin Sulaiman, for example, died in 150. Said Büncüberi is credited on this. Imam al-Hanife, for example, the founder of fiqh, was also around, lived in the same period. So before Islam, there was a law that was applied, but turning into a discipline and structuring all the concepts like marriage, etc., happened in the Islamic period. Imam Ebu Hanife died in 150. So this person was was a judge at the time, and these people that I'm talking about died around the same time. The latest one died in 204. So Shafi wrote the methods of fiqh. Mu'tazili penned the methods and ways of kalam. And in the 3rd century, it was basically some of these, like kalam, had some issues when it comes to their legitimacy. But in the 3rd century, everything was settled. And then, just like Mr. Tahsin Görgün mentioned in terms of acquired knowledge, so after these people built these disciplines, around the year 200 and 220, other Elulum al-Ajamiye and Elulum Hakikiye and other philosophical sciences were also translated into Arabic. And around the same time, some Sanskrit texts were translated into Arabic, and also some Pahlavi language texts were also translated, but also lots of texts were translated from Greek. So these translated texts have to be evaluated by those who translated them, and also by those who follow the translated versions. So basically the idea was that these translations would allow to help with the acquired knowledge. But the thing was that these translated texts were really, really old, mostly talking about the Greek history, dating back to 16, 1700 years. And before that we have Egypt, and before that we have history in Kellani region, and also Persians as well. So we talk about 3,000 to 4,000 years of history in terms of the history of these texts. So as these texts got translated, I think they noticed something, and it was basically before the translated texts in Islam, they didn't have any groups of philosophers. So Islamic philosophers after the establishment of the groups of Islamic philosophers, so you have these people who previously focused on religious law studies, and there were some differences in the approaches. So in terms of religious law studies, basically they are about the offer of religion, and it's focusing on things like the management of individuals and society and life. So in Tasawwuf and in Kelam, there is also Nazari research. And also in these religious law studies, we also have natural evaluations. So looking at the theoretical side of it, they basically had disciplines like zoology, meteorology, theoretical physics, maths, geometry, etc. So among these, Muslims they worked on the relations between these two groups of sciences, and they had difficulty in terms of finding that relations. The first person was Farabi on the philosopher side to combine these two categories of sciences in terms of religious sciences and theoretical sciences. And Mr. Tahsin Görgün also alluded to that when he talked about the classification of sciences. So looking at the reason, maths, physics, language sciences, and also ethics and political science. So you have to have that. So Farabi focused on these ideas, and then basically the rules governing individuals' lives and society was set. So Farabi focused on theoretical sciences and also ameli sciences, and Farabi also focused on ethics, political science, and more. So basically, this offer of Farabi was not recognized by religious law studies scientists at the time, and there were basically different clusters of sciences. So this was the case until Ghazali. Ghazali's classification was also in line with Farabi's classification. And you see that in Ghazali's material. So what Ghazali did different than Farabi was that basically maths was established as an independent area, and he combined metaphysical sciences and Kelam and categorized those under theoretical sciences. And he also focused on physics and math and the differences between them. And he also showed the way to do that. And he also added fiqh and other religious law studies there. So he put physics and metaphysical approaches, and then he recategorized in the subcategories. So he had fiqh, tafsir, etc., religious ones and non-religious ones. He also added those approaches. He also put tasawwuf. And tasawwuf is actually not the best way to explain that. And another thing that this offer by Ghazali was worked on, and other Muslim thinkers uh, worked on it, and they made it more detailed. And another thing that philosophers achieved was that people like Amili, Ibn Sina, and Farabi they worked on these things. And they worked on things like ontology. They worked on metaphysical approaches and worked on maths and physics. One of the successes of the Muslims was that they basically set the foundation of theoretical physics. And they also worked on music and maths. They worked on optics, and they basically wrote the new approaches on optics. And they also worked on logic, reason, and the same approach when it comes to logic and reason still going on today. They also did a lot of important developments in geometry and maths. But philosophers continued the pave the road opened by Farabi. And Ibn Amil and Ibn Sina. Philosophers also put tasawwuf, mysticism, into the mix. And this understanding was developed, and Irshadul Qasid was the top level of that. A similar approach was done by Ibn Hazm, the similar approach to Ghazali. Ibn Haldun said that a civilization had to work together in language and religion, and before having that, he said sciences would not be possible. For example, the religion of this ummah is Islam. So maybe previous speaker spoke took all the time, but okay, I'm just coming to the end, so not going to talk about Ibn Haldun. But this tradition was reached to its top at Tashkibzadeh. But what Tashkibzadeh did was he combined different approaches. Tashkibzadeh put Kelam and metaphysics in the same group. So what they did was Kelam and Fiqh would be under metaphysics in this new approach compared to the previous approaches. So they focused on natural sciences, metaphysical science, and methodical sciences. That is the most developed classification that we have. So this also relates to our approach after 13th, 14th century, and our approach to alims. The types of alims like Razi is basically described by these classifications. And after the westernization, this idea was also damaged. So mathematics and physics that work on nature basically changed their approaches. So instead of logic and reason, the math approach to math changed. Chemistry, physics changed, and some things developed. A lot of things were added on top of these ideas. And this classical, traditional classification we have, and this new approach, metaphysics, was classified differently. And also social sciences were also added into the mix. And this classification that we have now is different and doesn't exactly comply with the previous classifications we have. So my offer is that the disintegration of metaphysics from the sciences might be seen as a crisis, but it doesn't have to be the case. And development of maths and physics, and those people who developed maths and physics, they also believed. So they didn't develop it against metaphysics. So basically the issue was that the connection to metaphysics was removed. So I think Tahsin Görgün also mentioned it in his speech. So if we consider our own assumptions, and if we try to do these sciences in universities anyway, and also when it comes to social sciences, if we work on social sciences while keeping in touch with our traditional approaches, I think we can come up with a new classification that suits us. This idea might seem optimistic, but I think it is doable. And as we learn it, as we work on it, I think we will do it even better and achieve it. Thank you very much.
Evet. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Thank you for your insightful speech. It was very informing with significant topics, but it's a late hour. We have other speakers. Dr. Yaqub Chaudhary is going to make a speech.
For the future of intelligence, and he is going to speak in English. Sir, you have 20 minutes, inshallah.
Yeah, just test that. Find out now. So, is there volume for the speaker system there?
I think we shouldn't switch to speak system right now. Just use the computer. Use the computer, and I will put the microphone here for you.
Okay.
Just open it.
Evet, bakayım. How much time do you need? It's already done.
Yeah.
1 dakika diyor. 1 dakika diyor. Yani 1 dakikada bir soru alabiliriz.
We have 1 minute, and if you have any questions for our speakers, we could answer them. Thank you for your presentation. It was very informing, very edifying, and it was nice proposals too. Of course, we are at the dimension of a proposal or making an offer, which is a feat on itself. I have a short question for Tahsin Hoca to explain one of his points. As you know, we have been trying to Islamitize the knowledge, the information. Can you differentiate it from your offer? And to Ömer Hoca, I personally know that Farabi classifies Kelam theology under the civilized sciences. Why did you think he classified them that way? Because the speakers think that the answers they will give will take too much time. Maybe they will answer the questions after Mr. Yaqub's presentation. After Mr. Yaqub's presentation, the questions will be answered.
I'm going to begin with these are some promotional clips from the company and video. So yeah, I'll invite the panel to sit over there.
I am a creator. Blending art and technology. To immerse our senses. I am a healer, helping us take the next step.
Right. So it's another clip. I want to get a sense of I'm a healer, I'm a guardian.
Defending our oceans.
Okay. But you can hear the audio from these clips, right? Okay.
Magnificent creatures that call them home. I am a guardian, defending our oceans. Magnificent creatures that call them home. I am a protector, helping the earth breathe easier.
Okay. So I think you can get an idea. Of course. Yeah. Sorry. So these are excerpts from the campaignational promotion which NVIDIA, the company most responsible for the AI revolution, which we're currently undergoing. It's now the most valuable company in the world. And this is some of the rhetoric which they've been using to promote their technologies. So this voice which you're hearing is actually AI generated. The music is AI generated. And the words which is being given are things like, you know, I'm a guardian, I'm a creator, I'm a healer. These, I think, should be of interest from the Islamic theological perspective, if we are considering that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belong the most beautiful names. So, you know, all of these have, you know, if we were to translate these into Arabic, where would they land, right? So one more clip. Sorry about the audio, but okay, try this one.
I am AI, brought to life by NVIDIA, deep learning, and brilliant minds everywhere.
Right, so I am AI. So if you continue those verses from Surah Taha, Innani ana Allah. It's very interesting. So how this has been appropriated in this secular context and is revolutionizing the world around us. So I think the reason I've started with those clips, thank you very much, Professor Ömer Türker. We met in maybe 2018 and we had discussion about AI. You know, if we don't bring together our most sophisticated intellectual response to this challenge of AI will have the last word. So that's what I want to really impress upon all of you with this talk. So my slides, I have quite a few slides, but I want to leave as much room for discussion as possible. Right. So I've shown you NVIDIA. I want to also look at now this company, Google, also known as Alphabet. This is their mission statement. Our mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Every single word here, this is a statement of a metaphysical research program. And every word is loaded. Information, organize, useful. What do they mean by information? The world's information. What does that mean exactly? What does it mean to organize it? What does it mean to make it useful? Useful to whom? Universally accessible to whom exactly? These are the questions we need to interrogate about these companies. Yeah, so I really had the pleasure of meeting Professor Ömer. So it's quite an honor to be speaking here alongside me on a panel. But in that time, we were undergoing the deep learning revolution. So neural networks had just, around about 2018, I think, had just appeared, you know, demonstrating quite remarkable results. In that time period since then, we have multiple other revolutions within the field of AI. Most notably, the revolution of the transformer architecture. So if you're not familiar with AI technologies, there are three key ingredients which go together. Computation, data, and human intelligence. And when we're talking about large language models such as ChatGPT, which are also known as foundation models or generative AI, whenever you see this symbol, I'm talking about this type of AI model. We're talking about computational resources on the most enormous scale, data on the scale of the internet, and you know, and private data as well, on an enormous scale. Human intelligence as well, brought together through crowdsourcing around the globe. Human intelligence. This intelligence that AI has is parasitic on people in developing countries being paid below poverty wages to provide label and cognitive information for labeling what is actually these systems are learning to produce supposed intelligence. And then also intelligence as well, human expertise as well, the very sophisticated, very intelligent engineers which are developing this technology. So again, this is not, I don't want to get into a technical talk, but this is that transformer architecture which all of these current revolutionary foundation models are using. So this is implemented in code to operationalize computational resources on an enormous scale. And this is a sort of visualization of what will happen as you progress through the code, through the network, implementing massive amounts of computation. Billions and trillions of operations per second between your input and producing an output. So these models, I don't know how familiar you are with them in the Turkish language, but in the Anglosphere, they have really, people are really astonished by their capabilities of being able to seeming to understand what people are saying to them and producing intelligible outputs. How are they able to do this? This is one of the lead researchers, Ilya Sutskever, his explanation of this.
Underlying process that produces the data. To predict the data well, to compress it well, you need to understand more and more about the world that produced the data. As our generative models become extraordinarily good, they will have, I claim, a shocking degree of understanding. A shocking degree of understanding of the world and many of its subtleties. But it's not just the world, it is the world as seen through the lens of text. It tries to learn more and more about it.
So I think because it's difficult it's not audible entirely. So what I want to emphasize is what he's saying is that these models, these AI technologies, when they're trained on text, they do not only learn the relationships, the semantic content of a corpus of text, the meaning of the words and the relationships in the meanings, the meaning which emerges from the relationships between the way the words are put together, but also it learns a model of the world. Well, again, this is something which needs to be explored, this claim about it being a world model, but he is interesting. Sutskever is interesting from our perspective as well, because he had established a bit of a reputation in the company OpenAI as a spiritual leader, leading ritualistic chants, leading employees to chant, "Feel the AGI, feel the AGI." He even commissioned the wooden effigy of a supposed unaligned AI, which is supposedly OpenAI is a company founded on ensuring an AI that is created that's so supposedly aligned with humanity, whatever that means. So again, the question is, from our Muslim perspective, is how much are we going to follow these people and be mesmerized by this technology? So I offer the comparison to As-Samiri in the Quran. So here again, the cultural artifacts of the people of that time were, the gold which they had were dissolved, were melted down, and to produce this idol. In the same way, these models, these AI models, large language models, they take all of the text, reduce it to a one-dimensional sequence, undifferentiated, amalgamated mass of data, the cultural product of humanity at large, and produce this AI chatbots or models which appear to deliver intelligible responses. Here, what astonished the people of the Samiri is the lowing of the cow. Here, this AI technology is doing much more than that. It's even telling you about itself. It's giving you a report about itself. It's not just about text. It's about more than text. It's about image, 3D, video, proteins, sequences, any modality can be translated to any other modality. You can go from protein, text to protein and back, or you could go from text to video, audio to video, and so on and so forth. Again, this is a clip from NVIDIA's founder. I'll get a reading from many of you if you're interested in me playing this, or I can just put the text. So let me see if. Okay, no problem. This is why I have the text. Right. So the canonical use case of the future is a large language model on the front end of just about everything. Every single application, every single database. Whenever you interact with a computer, you will likely first engage with a large language model. That large language model will figure out what is your intention, what is your desire, what are you trying to do, given the context, and present you the information in the best possible way. It will do the smart query, maybe a smart search, augment the query in that search with your question, with your necessary prompt, and generate whatever information necessary. This is the idea of the foundation model. It's much more than just, dialogue with AI systems. It's actually the ambition is to position it as the foundational platform for the future of computing. It's a new model of computing. So rather than the existing approach to computing, where you enter your query and the information is retrieved directly, instead, information is to be, if this ambition is realized, information is generated on the point of your query. So this positions these companies, NVIDIA, Google, Microsoft, who own the models and own the data centers and so on, as the intermediaries to all intellectual output that you retrieve from them, because they're generating it for you. They're not going to the third party to draw it, to bring it to you. They're generating it through the model. So this is a type of authority which these technology. So Google already presides over what's been described as a database of intention, possibly the most largest and ponderous and significant artifact in the history of humankind. The results of every search ever entered, every result list ever tendered, every path taken. So this is the monopolization of knowledge by Google. Knowledge transformed into information. The next stage is the ordering and organization of that information, which is taking place now through these architectures, transformer architecture. And hopefully, if I have enough time, I'll get to how this transforms into will from the machine. Facebook Meta AI is also building an assistant. And again, these assistants are to be positioned as intermediaries and mediators to every human interaction, every human-computer interaction. So what will happen is this AI will, if you're in a group chat, they will, if someone prompts the AI will actually come into the chat if a query is left unresponded to. So the point is here, how is this going to reshape the intellectual authorities which exist, the structures which we already have in society? Again, it's much bigger than the social interaction. This is about science as well. Very deep revolution in science underway as well. The computational. So this is these latest technologies are inheriting a trajectory which began with big data, the mass collection of data, its universalization into digital form information, and AI inherits this trajectory, and it's the authority of the computer model and simulation which overturns that of the experimental arena. So Professor Türker earlier on speaking about principles and procedures. There is no longer any principle. The principle is intermeshed with the procedure. The model is the procedure. The data science method is the procedure, but there is no principle. The principle is to be uncovered via the model. Okay, this is surprisingly effective, actually. So AlphaFold predicting the structure of the proteins from the sequences. Again, I'm not going to dwell on these slides too much, but this is a latest report from November 2024 from Google again, a new golden age of discovery, seizing the AI for science opportunity. Again, this is significant because of the critical role that science has in today's society as the intellectual authority, the scientists especially in Western society. So this is, on the one hand, this further reinforces the authority of science because of the impressive achievements which are going to come out of this, with great questions to be asked about these achievements, but also that it is a transposition of authority, a ceding of authority from the human sphere to the machinic sphere as well. That's what's currently underway. So to give like a broad overview of what this type of thing will look like in the future, you'll interact with models, in the cloud and data centers, which become the authoritative source of information and inference. Whether that's health data, financial data, legal, government policy, they'll all be interacting with models for the inference, and even personal. So this is, as I mentioned, the ordering of information. So this is the picture of this convergence of physical space and cyberspace. So the ambition is to build a digital layer of reality which is coextensive with the physical plane of existence. And within this shared space, shared ontological space, ontological continuity is established between humans and artificial agents as informational entities. Okay, there's not much time now, but this is going to go into more detail about the mechanisms which can be operationalized to wield these tools as instruments of authority and power. So I'll give you just some examples. One of them is this problem of pollution. You've probably heard of misinformation, disinformation, fake news, propaganda, all of this stuff, which is accelerated and aggravated because of the ability to use these models, generative AI models, to produce this at scale very cheaply. But also, just generally, when you try to search for things on the internet, there's so much information there, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what you want. So in this type of scenario, the AI appears as the intellectual authority or the oracle to guide you through to the knowledge. So what is trying to be forced through is a ceding of one's own capacities over to the AI as the mediator. There are some people who are prepared to take this all the way. This New York Times journalist, columnist, I took a decision holiday and put AI in charge of my life. How should I cut my hair? What book should I read? All decisions, just to let the AI tell you what to do. Right. The other one is uniformization. So the thing is, both modalities are possible through this one technology. You can either create information chaos or you can create information order. So my time is running short, but ultimately this is what's been described in the literature as homogenization, the imposition of an algorithmic monoculture. That because these models are so much pre-training computation is necessary to build a model in the first place, it's not really feasible to make a cultural an independent model. You've got to rely on existing models which have already been influenced by a particular culture. Okay, then there's also another mechanism. So again, with authority, when it comes to intellectual authority, when it doesn't truly exist, the shortcut is to resort to charisma and rhetoric and so on. So this is what happens with LLMs as well. What is going to happen? Because I have to summarize because I don't have much time. But what has been discovered is that they are they're able to generate dialogue which is very persuasive. To the extent that these researchers want to use it to find democratic middle ground. So, for example, if you've got different views in a debate, just to take all of the summaries from all the different sides, have the LLM aggregate that, and then build a consensus using the LLM, using the large language model summary. Again, this is Google research. So the problem here should be obvious, because what this implies is that if you are resistant to the algorithm's summary, you are the belligerent party in this discourse. So this is a very insidious way of undermining authority. These projects which they're creating for rhetorical and persuasive systems. You know, go back to classic Greeks for the rhetorical ability always trumps reason and knowledge. Meta's Cicero AI is specifically designed. This model came out the same month as ChatGPT, November 22, but very little attention has been paid. This model is designed actually for strategic reasoning, to persuade and generate dialogue in order to achieve a particular objective. In this case, it's this game called diplomacy. So this is one of the graphics which they have on there. So you can see the AI agent in the middle there being used. You know, it can pull together different parties, it can separate. Now again, I focus a lot on text, conversation ability. This is image generation ability as well. So hopefully, can you see what's there in the image? Okay, can anyone see anything there? Okay, right. Can you see the word? Can you see the word? Obey. You see that, right? They're all the same. This is O-B-E-Y. Okay, so this is these types of images with hidden messages can be mass produced. You will not recognize anything about this when it's enlarged, but if you reduce it, you can see the words clearly. Okay. Okay, I don't have time for. I'm just going to have to go to the end now. So I'll have to skip this. Ultimately, they are the idea is that all of your interactions are collected to calibrate each individual person to a model, using all of these, the collected interactions, all the summary of all of your interaction. When you're engaging the system, it's all being collected. And what they've shown here is simulation of 1,000 people. And the simulation was able to produce the same type of attitudes and behaviors as the real people. So they took 2 hours of conversation with each individual. They added that to the context of the AI model, and then asked and then compared that to the individual's own recollection and responses to further questioning. And it turns out it's an 85% match. Okay. Again, guess who's behind this? Google. So, knowledge, order, will. We're in the midst of a metaphysical research program, which is ultimately to position the LLM as an instrument of power and authority over the human sphere. And again, we have precedent in the Quran to understand this situation. And thank you very much for your time, for your patience. I hope it's been interesting.
Okay, thank you very much for the third speaker for bringing us to the reality, right? Now we are back to the reality, and actually there were some questions about the person. Türkçe geçiyorum. Hoca soru.
We had a few questions, but the person who asked the question has left the room. So if you have any questions, we can get a few questions. We have to wrap up as well. It's almost 7. We listened some amazing speeches. So if you have a questions, feel free to do so. So, Mr. Ömer and Mr. Tahsin, 2 amazing speeches. Thank you very much. So, I'd like to ask you about your approach to universities and also classification of information and how Muslims did their own classification of sciences. So, in your approach to university, is this an Islamic value-based universal understanding of a university or not? This is my question. So, my second question is to you. Sir, let's say you have money and freedom and power. You are going to build a university, depending on the classifications that you talk about. So, what would you make it different compared to universities we have now? And what would be the roadmap, the target for the university that you would build? So, the answer to that question, so first of all, I can't say I would take this or leave that, but a university as we have it today basically focuses on all the acquired knowledge of humanity. And basically, the university classifies all that body of information and it tries to distribute that knowledge to the upcoming generations depending on the need. Of course, in connection to that, that's what the university does. So let's say about artificial intelligence, we as a humanity, we have an acquired knowledge and we are going through an important milestone. But it is important to use and facilitate that knowledge and find ways of using that knowledge for the benefit of humanity, not for the detriment of the humanity. So in any field, let's say chemistry. In chemistry, it's a very multi-faced thing, chemistry. You can build chemical weapons, but also you can produce medicine for people. So there's also another issue with the medicine industry and pharmaceutical industry becoming more and more commercialized. So seeing all these negative aspects, are we going to ban chemistry? No, of course not. But it is important to know about chemistry with all its phases, but also develop reasonable ways of working and developing chemistry for the benefit of people. So for humanity now, or for any departments in universities, we can't say this department or this subject is not necessary or it shouldn't be taught, etc. All the subjects, all the departments can respond to human needs. What we can do is to classify the needs depending on those different fields. And this way, by classifying those depending on humanity's needs, we can actually see which ones are more useful, more essential. And this would allow us to put more resources on the more useful ones, and also putting more human effort. So, smartest people, they work in, for example, engineering, medicine, etc. But aristocrats, for example, they wouldn't be engineers, they would be lawyers, etc. So the smartest ones could be, for the smartest ones, feels like medicine and engineering could be promoted, while others could be diverted to other areas. So this is something that we can work on and consider. And it's a very concrete question. So you have to focus on it in a very concrete way. But I think we would have problems also in terms of developing and finding academicians who facilitate that. So I don't want to take too much of your time. The question was answered properly, so we can wrap up. So thank you very much. We are coming to the end of our panel.